The Israel funding bill, standalone, failed. 43 Democrats voted for it. I think it was 12 or 11 Republicans voted against it. It needed 2/3, which is increasingly common in this Republican-controlled Congress, but rare in our legislative history. And the reason why it needs 2/3 is because the conservative flank, or there's always somebody, it seems, in the Republican caucus who is not assenting to the rules. Really, basically, they call it the rule. It is the primary rule of, and it is rarely ever this way. Usually, caucuses, Democratic and Republican, all agree, we vote for the rule, essentially, which says the rule is that we're going to have our passage of bills based on a 50% or 50% plus one majority, and that's it. There are members of the Republican caucus now who are pissed at Mike Johnson. They're pissed at Kevin McCarthy. They're just pissed. And they force stuff to become 2/3, to make for a 2/3 threshold. And in this case, you had only 43 Democrats who were voting for it. And so the bill failed. All the Republicans more or less voted for it. Now, this was a bill that Joe Biden said he would veto because he wants that Ukraine funding as well. And now in the Senate, we're seeing a Ukraine and Israel funding bill about to get voted on. I don't know if it's going to happen today, but it's going to happen within the next couple of days, if not. So that's that on that side.
But good news on that front. Good news that, I mean, Biden says he would veto it. But I do think that the fact that there were only, 43, 46 Democrats that joined it, usual suspects too, like Gottheimer and Cuellar and Debbie Wasserman.
Some progressives that I think we would be unhappy about. But
like Adam Schiff voted for it. Katie Porter didn't. Gallego, who's running for Senate in Arizona. Gallego, running for Senate in Arizona, did vote for it, which is disappointing. But point is, like, there are rumblings that opposition to more aid to Israel on the Democratic side is more the number of House Democrats who are shaky about it is probably higher than we're seeing in the press.
And and now let's move on to the immigration bill has completely imploded, but just the idea that now we're calling it the immigration bill is a sign of the failure of the Biden administration. I know I went on a protracted rant about this in the fun half yesterday. We talked about it for quite some time.
It wasn't in the fun half.
It was the extended first half.
Oh, really? Oh, good.
You were so impassioned. It was righteous.
And we will play clips that show exactly what I'm talking about. MSNBC hosts referring to what's happening at the border as an invasion. Democratic senators talking about the chaos that is taking place now, all essentially accepting Donald Trump's premise. And the difference between the situation between now and when the election happens will be only that Donald Trump's premise has now been adopted by the Democratic Party. The Democrats will not be able to get any policy changes associated with that. Except the only thing that's changed is that they now accept Donald Trump's premise that we are being subject to an invasion of immigrants at the border. And it's total chaos. And New York City is aflame right now. All of which is total BS. Total BS. But I will show you examples of this. It's a massive failure. Joe Biden's out there saying, like, they're afraid of Donald Trump. Well, Donald Trump could just say, like, okay, I'm a leader. And when I get in, they're going to do what I say, and we're going to fix this chaos that you agree is happening. I mean, this is chaos. I can't even, don't get me started again on this. I know nobody did.
A reprise?
Nobody did. All right, but let's talk about the Mayorkas impeachment, because this is pretty funny. They got a little bit hoodwinked, the Republicans did, and I'll explain in a moment, but this is what we saw yesterday on the House floor.
On this vote, the yeas are 214 and the nays are 216. The resolution is not adopted.
Sort of feels like if you're going to hold an impeachment vote, you should be really sure that you're going to be able to impeach the guy.
They're not doing a good job of whipping votes. I'll say that.
Well, there were 3 defectors. But here, we'll explain in a second. Here's Marjorie Taylor Greene's explanation.
Was the Democrats hid one of these votes that they had, so was it something that people would see? Is that something that Republicans?
I'm glad you asked that because well, we can basically look at this as a game, unfortunately, and their strategy. And they hid one of their members, waiting to the last minute, watching to see our votes, trying to throw us off on the numbers that we had versus the numbers they had. So yeah, that was a strategy at play tonight.
Fair.
So do you essentially was the plan?
Okay, so to be clear, what she's talking about, she's actually sort of she's sort of telling the truth here, but it's also you're really bad at the basic game of counting.
Yeah.
So there were 212 Democrats and 4 Republicans who voted no. The 4 Republican votes, well, the first 3 that voted against it were Ken Buck, Tom McClintock, and Mike Gallagher. And Blake Moore is the 4th vote, and he's from Utah. Now, it was 215 to 215 at the end of voting, and Blake Moore changed his vote so that he could vote against the impeachment thing, because at 215, the impeachment motion dies, and there's no opportunity to revive it unless someone on the Democratic side, or those 3 Republicans who actually genuinely voted no against it, wanted to revive it. So Moore voted against it so that he has the opportunity to revive it in the future. This used to happen in the Senate quite a bit. You'd see like Harry Reid do this sometimes. But here's what happened, and this is what the Marjorie Taylor Greene is complaining about. Al Green apparently was in the hospital. Democrat. He had some type of surgery. He wanted to come back. He claims he didn't know that he was going to be the tie-breaking voter in this. He wanted to vote against it. And so he came in to the House, and they held him in like the green room until it was time for that specific vote. The Republicans had taken a vote earlier, which was sort of just a throwaway vote. I don't know what it was on, but some measure like, I don't know, naming a post office or whatever, so that they could get a sense of like, okay, are we close to this?
Right.
Like how many people are here?
Yep.
And then Al Green, I think they wheeled him in, and he came in, he voted, and then he left.
I mean, they were hiding him, I guess. Well, first he was being hidden at the Hamas command center. I mean, the hospital where he was having surgery. And then and then they wheeled him in, I guess they say in hospital clothes. I keep seeing like Daily Callers like really playing this up. He was in hospital clothes. He's not been photographed in hospital clothes. I think he was in his gown, got changed, then came to the floor. And then now that's why there's that 2-vote threshold. But the reason she can't count in that instance is because even if Al Green hadn't showed up, that no vote still would have taken place, as you say, so they had the opportunity to revise it later, right?
No. Because if Al Green hadn't showed up, it wouldn't have been 215, 215. It would have been 215, 214.
Okay.
But when Al Green showed up, it was 215, 215. And then Blake Moore said, I'm going to change my vote, making it 216 against 214.
So he created the deadlock. Got it.
Yes, Al Green created the deadlock. Exactly. And the reason why, now, if you're better at math than the Republicans, you will know that 215 plus 215, or 216 plus 214 is equals 430. And you say, well, I thought there was 435. George Santos, as you recall, expelled, and they haven't. His election is next Tuesday, not his, but for that seat. Kevin McCarthy resigned. The special election's not happening until May, 3rd week in May. Bill Johnson of Ohio resigned. Special election not until June. And Brian Higgins special election from New York, he's a Democrat, special election TBD. And then the other person, Steve Scalise, was not present because apparently he can't leave the hospital in his gown. I don't,
he has cancer.
He has cancer. I'm trying to...
Just move on. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. He's like David Duke without the baggage. I'm trying to do some type of. He's like a different person with cancer, but with the baggage. That's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah. Well.
Anyways, he didn't make it into the vote.
Sahil Kapoor of CNN, NBC, said that he got a text from a Republican aide last night saying maybe we shouldn't have kicked out Santos, and Santos was gloating all over social media. Was he on the House floor? Was he nearby or something like that? He's been showing up places like at the Trump victory party, and he's very happy about this whole but like the fact that that's what the conclusion that they're drawing is hilarious. It's your guys' fault. You didn't have the votes.
And we would also add that the reason why Steve Scalise cannot vote is because when the Republicans took over, they immediately rescinded the proxy vote thing that was there under the Democrats because of COVID.
Yep.
And so,
oops. That's why they had to, hide Al Green, aka he had to come in person despite having surgery to cast this vote.
The whole thing is hilarious. If you look at the whole yesterday with that 2/3 thing too, and the fact that they're going to end up passing, I think, the Ukraine-Israel funding package. That's my guess. We'll see. You go back to everything that like the Matt Gaetzes and those crew did. You realize like all they did was cluster F themselves in every way possible.
And I saw a tweet from another reporter last night. It might have been Jake Sherman. I don't remember. Someone saying, time to motion to vacate Mike Johnson, which, like, I don't know if that's going to happen. It probably won't because the Republicans were so badly scarred from how a debacle that was with Kevin McCarthy. But this is 2 failed votes back to back on the same night where Mike Johnson was unable to deliver, and Emmer, as the whip, was unable to actually effectively count where the Republican votes were at. It's embarrassing to have brought this to the floor and have it fail like this.
Yeah, and aside from the embarrassment, what it really does is it just makes it hurts the Republican Party's chances in the fall, and steps a little bit on their whole sort of like notion of like there's chaos at the border. You don't vote for this thing, and then But fortunately for them, I guess Joe Biden's out there saying that there is chaos at the border and that we are being invaded practically. Good. And so the Democratic Party is doing their job for them.